Ladies and gentlemen, dear Stefanie, it's great to be here. The media call the DLD the hottest conference of Europe. So I very much, of course, looked forward to join you this morning. What is the new real all about? And what context does it set for the internet and the digital world? These are the questions I would like to talk about. 3 weeks into 2012, or one day for the Chinese, it's a good moment to have a glance back into 2011, but also more importantly, to look into our future. 2011 clearly has been the year of crisis. We had to face 5 crises in 2011, and they have the following common denominators. They were all major, they were global, they were in most areas of our life, political, financial, economic, based on natural catastrophe and also related to climate. Also, they were interconnected. I'm not going to repeat. I think, of course, we all remember the tragedy in Japan, the financial and debt crisis, not just in Europe, as well as in the US and in Japan, the price hikes we had to face in most commodities, steel, copper, rare earths, and so on. A rebellion, I think a positive crisis, if the end will be positive in the future, but also climate change. And 2011, we experienced the highest level of CO2 output that mankind has ever produced, over 30 billion tons of CO2. It's clearly an unbearable state. Now, the word crisis in English, in French, and in German is a negative word. You know, it means a difficult situation. I very much like the Chinese, and the Chinese, they have a pictograph with 2 symbols. One symbol stands for danger, and the other one for the opportunity. I can tell you, I like this. I also see very much the opportunity in this. Let's look into the future. What is the context that we're moving with our world, with our business, with the internet, but also with the digital world? And it becomes more important, I believe, to ask the following 2 questions. The first one is, what is real and sustainable of all these challenges we're facing? And the second one, what is only imaginary and ephemeral? I think it becomes more and more important to differentiate between the 2 and, of course, address the ones that are real and sustainable. Now, what are those? The first one is clearly the lack of resources. And already today, we, as mankind, we are using the resources, water, air, wood, of 1.5 planets. It's a fact that we're moving in. Now, population development doesn't help. Actually, it aggravates because, as we all know, in November, the 7th billion inhabitant of our world has been born, Danica, in the Philippines. So we're actually over 7 billion inhabitants, and we're moving to 9, which would mean we would need 2 planets. I think it's also too big of a challenge for the digital world to produce 2 planets. We have 1, and that's the one we have to cope with. Additional challenge, of course, the resource scarcity. that we're facing. And to give you just one example, France had to shut down part of their nuclear power plants this summer, not for political reasons, but simply because of a lack of cooling water. France, Europe, they had to do that. So this will become a major factor for us in the future. An additional fact remaining, and I believe strongly that's the good news, is the drive for freedom. We have seen it in a number of parts of our world, of course, most consistently in the Arabellion evolution. And I would like just to quote, I think, a fantastic statement of the late Václav Havel, who said, "Freedom is like the sea. Individual waves may not achieve much, but the surge of the waves is unstoppable." And I think this is something, luckily, that will continue in our world. These waves are unstoppable. We will have to cope with that as well. And then last but not least, to come to DLD, clearly the merger of globalization and IT revolution has a major effect. And the effect really is a democratization of many things for countries, but also for companies. And what level of democratization I see? Firstly, of course, of information. And anybody today, Mr. Burda, can be a publisher. Anybody. Just the technology that allows this, positive or negative, but that is the way it is. Democratization of war. I think we have seen it with 9/11. Of course, that's a more negative evolution. Democratization of innovation. And today, with the cloud, any small Chinese, American, German startup can challenge a large player, which is positive. So this part clearly is driving our world. Now, how do I see the answers to these challenges? How can we cope with this? How can we be equally successful in the future as we have been in the past as mankind? And the first one for me is recollection. It's not a word we use a lot. Everything today is about speed, instant response, hit and clicks, etc. But you cannot solve the Euro crisis overnight. Take climate change. When you go on the internet, you find 100 million hits. Well, but the thing is, you will not find the answer to the problem. The answer still needs to come from us, luckily so. So for me, recollection really means the issues we are facing today as mankind, as companies, as countries, as regions, are so fundamental, are so challenging, that we just need to take the time. We cannot solve them today. Maybe we cannot solve all of them tomorrow. The second part of this recollection is also to think about our limitation. We can probably not solve everything. And going back to good old Socrates, who clearly said, "I know nothing but the fact of my ignorance." So sometimes simply taking more time, but also admitting that we do have certain limits, even with the best brains around us. The second answer for me clearly is the vision. And sometimes I feel in companies, in countries, in regions, today, a little bit a lack of vision. Now, what is vision all about? Vision is clearly to have a picture of the future. That's it, the photo of the future. I take one example with Siemens. Our vision, our photo of the future is to be the global leader in green technology. It's a simple vision, it's clear, you can imagine it, it doesn't take thousands of pages, all our people can think about it, and it very much fits to our DNA, to our mission. So this vision thing, I think, is becoming more and more important. What's the vision of Europe, as an example? So vision, I think, is something we have a little bit of opportunity for the future. Then, of course, strategy. And strategy is a very difficult world. You can think it's very complex, but at the end of the day, also looking back at my McKinsey training, it's actually very simple. I mean, the best definition, it's a set of measures to generate a competitive, sustainable advantage. Nothing more. And in Siemens, what we did, we have analyzed the green tech market. Today it's 1.6 trillion euros. It will grow to 3 by 2020. It's big, a lot of growth. So we have identified this as our strategic advantage, and we have defined a set of measures, how we can be a clear leader in this environment. So strategy. Well, it still takes some more answers for the future. And the next one clearly is leadership. And it seems obvious that in a democratic world, in a flat world, in an internet world, in a digital world, the same leadership as in the past does not apply. So very much moving from command and control to connect and collaborate. I call it network leadership. We have experience in our company, specifically also in my area. The whole supply chain in Siemens, it's a 40 billion euro spend, is run by a global network. Nothing more and nothing less. And it has generated in the last 3 years a good competitive advantage for the company in value, but also in cost. It's a network. We have also started to create network with our partners, our suppliers, where we innovate new products, and for healthcare we were able to reduce time to market by 50% by just creating a tight network for innovation with our suppliers. So I'm a strong believer in the network leadership. It's not easy to introduce in very large companies, maybe also not in the European environment, but when you do it, it creates the necessary results. And last but not least, inspiration and enthusiasm. And just look back at the last 4 weeks. How much inspiration and enthusiasm did you see in the media, in your own world? And I just want to quote here a great American philosopher who spent a little bit of his life here in Germany, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he said, "Nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm." So the enthusiasm part, I think, is very, very important. So to close, I think these were the answer. I want to close with the following quote: "The significant problem we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at the time when we created them." And with this, I would very much propose to the DLD to take this thinking to the next level, to see the crisis we have been facing as an opportunity, and also to see it as a context for the further development of the internet and the digital world. And of course, I very much like to see afterwards this higher level of thinking that is coming out from this conference. Thank you very much.